Where's the camera? Right there. Okay. Huh?
Usually we end about 9 p.m. So
Okay.
here, of course.
That's done. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Good evening, friends present here, sisters and brothers in being born, getting old, sick, and getting ready for composting, dying. It's a very, how to say, unexpected way of being in this position. I arrived here today from Enzo village near Hillsburg in Sonoma County, and Ajahn Yaniko invited me to give a talk, and I asked him, "Are you sure?" Because I warned him, because the content of what I'm sharing might not be mainstream Dhamma, or definitely not mainstream Thai forest tradition Dhamma. And he said, "Oh, what did you say? Something like they are open for variety or something like that, or diversity." So I really want to warn you, because I'm not claiming at all that I can talk about Buddha Dhamma for various reasons. One is I haven't been in contact with the Dhamma for so long, just a few decades. And when I say this not too long, because I had the really great privilege earlier of last week to visit again and spend only a few days, but visit Bhavana Society, my beloved teacher, and I say also friend, Bhante Gunaratana, Bhante Ji as we refer to him. And he turns this month 98 in terms of age. He has been in robes for more than 85 years. Yeah, so I've grown out of my teenage years compared to that. And the comparing mind only, apparently to the teachings, only ends with full awakening. So we're in good company if we compare ourselves to others. And it feels good to my ego when I compare myself with really respected teachers like, Bhante Gunaratana, Lungpo Sumedo. I don't dare to compare myself with Lungpo Liam or Lungpo Cha or Ajahn Buddhadasa, which is my road teacher back in Thailand. But it really makes me feel better, to be honest. I have been in this monastery, 9-10 years ago, before this building was built. And that time I was hoping to spend some time with Ajahn Vipassanā. I think those days they called him still Ajahn Vipassanā, not Lungpo yet. But he was away most of the week I was there. He came the day before I left, and then we had the privilege, or I had the privilege to be with him in the car to San Francisco to visit the, at that time still, oh no, I think they were already bhikkhunis living in San Francisco near the beach. Because I wanted to check, to find out how is my relationship to this respected teacher, Ajahn Vipassanā. Because when I was a young monastic, I was living in the south of Thailand at Ajahn Buddhadasa's monastery, Wat Suan Mok. And I went to visit as a novice monk, Wat Pananachat, and I got, due to health issues, got stuck there for a few months. And then, I tell you, my projections about Ajahn Vipassanā at that time were manifold. This was a few decades ago. He was also a different person, teacher. Powerful, but I was full of fear also, and projections. And so I wanted to check, how is my relationship to him now? Because I heard also he is interested in insight dialogue, my heart practice, a form of Vipassanā, which is relational, which includes speaking and listening, not just, closing your eyes and being in whatever wonderland of your own mind or thoughts, or going beyond thoughts, deep jhanas or whatever states. So anyhow, I had the privilege to spend a few hours with him at least, and earlier this year, end of last year, end of December, I met him very briefly in Wat Pananachat, but only 50 minutes or so. So it's really nice to be back here at this incredible place. And usually I'm quite sleepy in meditation, but I wasn't tonight because sitting in front of that Buddha image is powerful. I mean, sitting a bit further back, I don't know how powerful that is, but it kept me from falling asleep. Maybe also because I was asked to give a talk or something, but I often don't like to close my eyes in meditation. Why? Because the Buddha didn't say anything in the Pali Canon about eyes when he was referring to sitting meditation. You might recall he was mentioning a straight back, sitting cross-legged, maybe establishing mindfulness somewhere in front of your face, or however you translate this term parimukhang. But he didn't say a single word about the eyes. And in different traditions they have different ideas about eyes. Sometimes they say you should close your eyes, you should have your eyes open or half open, or, like in Mahamudra or whatever, like this, whatever. And one thing I can tell you from my own experience is it's very nice to close your eyes when you're sleepy, and really invites more sleepiness, and this kind of, that wakes you up, when you have a mic in front of you. But other times, I shared with the monks earlier, one time I fell off the chair in meditation. That woke me up as well, This is the awakened one, in a different way. But for me, often, or this afternoon, Anagarika, Andrew took me to the utility building up the hill, and we were sitting there on a bench, and I was moved to tears. That happens a lot the last few weeks, months. But I don't know why, but maybe the place, maybe the view, maybe the dropping of something inside here, I have no idea, it doesn't matter. But I do remember my main mentor when I was in teacher training of Insight Dialogue was a woman, or is a woman, called Mary Burns, an incredible woman. I have tremendous respect for her. She's mid-70s, she's a psychotherapist, one of those. Oh, And when I asked her many years ago, what about this, tears? When you sit opposite somebody in meditation, you look at their eyes, they look at your eyes. It's a very common way of practice, right? Here? No. That's a way of practice of in inside dialogue. And often, or a number of times, and I can't control it or make it, tears appear. Sometimes in silence, sometimes what I hear from my meditation partner, what she or he speaks, sometimes when I speak, and a number of times these tears have a taste of gratitude, appreciation, being touched by what I hear. Anyhow, Mary said, when I asked, what about these tears? Bhante, tears are always good. And then I looked at her, Mary, always? Because there are sometimes tears, and I use tears sometimes to manipulate people, namely my mother. Wanting to get what I wanted, you know this kind of experiences? And then she looked at me, 98% or so. Tears are always good. And this is usually not the style of, teaching. It's not, I wouldn't call it teaching, but practice where the average Asian monk doesn't sit much in tears when they teach or practice, I would say. Yeah? Or sometimes it's also, you're supposed to not play cool, but it's noble or advised not to show much emotions. I've heard Asian teachers saying, you should get rid of emotions. I've lived with young monks who said, in the UK, we're not into emotions. I don't know what their understanding of Satipatthana is, but I tell you, my heart is often moved. It moves, motion. And I was talking with my host at Enzo Village, Lucy, who brought me here with another friend today. When you read some of these statements from the Therigatha, the enlightened nuns or monks, Therigatha and Theragatha, what are they called? These kind of utterances of awakened nuns or monks. Astonishing how they sometimes speak about powerful experiences like losing your child and not getting upset or something like that. Or not upset is the right word, but it blows my mind, some of these statements. Or when I heard from Venerable Analayo many years ago, that very inspiring German monk, he said something like, for the Buddha, it doesn't make any difference when he speaks or teaches to an audience how the people react, the resonance, to the stability of his mindfulness, to his peace or clarity. And it doesn't make any difference. No resonance is requested or influenced. And that is really beyond my imagination. To me, it makes a huge difference, to be honest. If you would sit here all either eyes closed, falling asleep. You are probably not allowed to bring your mobile phone in here and, while doing the Dhamma talk, do the forced refuge, focusing on an important whatever. To me, it's very helpful to have an impression, maybe I'm in my own head trip, that people listening and that people are there. And it's really, if I'm independent of that, it's hard for me to imagine as an experience. Or I'm quite inspired by the 12-step program, some of you might know from the Alcoholics Anonymous originally, and one of the programs is called CODA, codependency, something like that, I think it's called. And there's wonderful questions about how we are codependent of others. When I read this question, I said, oh, it sounds to me like anybody who is not fully awakened is codependent. Welcome in this club or boat. Yeah? So I'm quite dependent on other people, on environments, on conditions, because all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, yes, sure. Ultimately not satisfying. I can say sure intellectually, but not so easy to understand when I'm doing okay, or I think I'm doing okay. To see then the essence of dukkha is not so easy, because I have a history, what they call bipolar, manic depression, and I think that is corrected to something like reoccurring depression. There's a term which I always forget, but reoccurring, there's a certain medical term. Does somebody know? Huh? No? Anyhow, but when I lived in these wonderful monasteries in the UK sometimes, or in Switzerland, people were quite happy when I was depressed, because then they thought I practice well, like I'm shutting up, I'm quiet, I'm not a nuisance to others. But a number of times I was just quite depressed at times, And that doesn't feel nice. Especially if you have a lot of judgments about that. The kind of dukkha you experience, the second, third, fourth arrow, some of us, many of us are well trained to shoot against us. The actual experience, I love this what do you call equation? Dukkha. It's similar like Einstein's matter equals E, something like square. What is it from Einstein? Huh? What matters is E mc square? Yeah, so there is this equation dukkha on one side of the equation equals pain as an umbrella term for something unpleasant multiplied by resistance. Basically saying the more resistance, the more dukkha. Check it out in your own experience. No resistance, no dukkha. But the pain is still there. Knee pain or depression or, unpleasant food or unpleasant whatever. But this is, being free from dukkha doesn't mean happy-go-lucky, The Buddha had pains and, preferences in terms of, he asked somebody else to conclude his talk when he was in back pain, or at some point he had enough of young monks making a lot of noise. It's not so polite maybe to say he ran off to the forest to, have 3 months quiet, and meeting this bull elephant, leader of a herd, and he also had enough of his young elephant, whatever, Sangha. I like this kind of being human. And I sometimes say, if I would have lived at the time of the Buddha, probably I would have been a student of Venerable Ananda. Quite friendly, relational, liking nuns. I don't know. Not so high realized at that time when he was. Anyhow, doesn't matter. But the relationship to life, to dukkha or sukha, is crucial. How much dukkha it's very hard to translate dukkha. I don't like the translation or explanation suffering because that closes my heart. Often I sometimes prefer to refer to dukkha. Dukkha is all what is not ultimately, lastingly satisfying. It seems like a pretty good description, and life contains that quite a bit, right? What is not lasting, ultimately satisfying. And you know, many of you know this story apparently when Venerable Ananda, you know, this attendant of the Buddha for 25 years or so, you can say the closest intimate person to the Buddha for many years, made this bold statement, Venerable Sir, you know, or awakened one or whatever, Kalyanamitta is half of the spiritual life. Good, noble friendship is half of the spiritual life. That's quite a bold statement, isn't it? I wouldn't probably dare to say such things. And apparently, as the story goes, the Buddha rebuked him or something, in whatever way, you know, Ananda, don't say so. Kalyanamitta is the whole of the spiritual life. What a powerful statement is that? And how much do we relate or not relate to this teaching? What would we be in our life without our good dear friends? First of all, we wouldn't have met the Dhamma. We wouldn't sit here and live, survive. I mean, is our mother or father a good Kalyanamitta? But how much do we actually make a conscious effort of developing these qualities of a good friend? Or how much do we experience good friendship? And in my experience, I didn't live all the years as a monk in monasteries, but I'm pausing because I want to choose words which are truthful but not too impolite. And again, it's a personal thing. I mean, don't believe anything I'm saying, you know, because I'm just talking very personal. So I'm not talking necessarily Buddha Dharma, I'm talking Sukhacitto Dharma, my understanding of Dhamma. So I hope it's somehow connected to the Buddha Dharma or containing some truths. But my experience in monastic communities is often, there's a lot of potential, let's put it this way, to put genuine deep friendship more into practice. That's quite nicely put, isn't it? And of course, oftentimes in forest monasteries especially, you have in the old days, whatever that means, you know, as a young monk, when I was spending my first Pansa Vasa at Wat Panarachat, that time Ajahn Vipassanā was still the abbot, but Ajahn Jayasara was in charge, and you know, the attitude was do your duty, you know, after bindabat, mealing, clean up, and practice. Go to your kuti and practice. There's often a flavor of don't talk so much. This refers often to the verbal action of speech, right? But as we know, thinking is also a way of talking. Of course, they can't tell you, stop thinking. That would be utterly foolish also, but And then often in spiritual circles they talk about noble silence. That's an interesting term in my experience. I often experienced in monasteries, in meditation centers, I was asked to shut up. I was not allowed to talk. But for me that was not noble silence, because I wanted to talk at times. Sometimes, and many times, I wanted to escape from the dukkha I experienced as a way of relating, talking, distracting myself. It's not unhuman, or... So noble silence, what is noble silence? When you enter really meditative states which go beyond thinking, vitakka and vichara, initial and applied thought, or depends how you translate these jhana factors. But it's very clear also from the Buddha's teaching that there can be incredible clear mind and meditative experience with thinking and applying thought, which I'm quite familiar with in experiencing in this practice of insight dialogue, for instance, when you really speak about Dhamma or listen deeply to Dhamma. Why are the discourses full? I haven't counted how many times, the Buddha teaches, maybe a certain monk or nun teaches, and people, while they listen, have these deep penetrative insights or some other kind of insights, while they listen, up to full awakening, or stream entry, or whatever. And many accomplished meditation masters, also from the Mahayana, I know somebody really named it, Master Cheng Yen, I think, that most awakening experiences not necessarily happen in formal practice, when you sit or walk. Now, this is not an excuse not to do formal sitting or walking meditation. Yeah, but when do you say still these days the penny drops? Something really makes click. Yeah, it can happen any time. Especially maybe when we let go of, I want something. So the relational aspect, it's not just how I relate to other human beings, how I relate to nature. The Buddha was teaching quite a bit about relationship, right? When you look at a powerful teaching like the Mahamangala Sutta, 38 blessings or something, I think it says 38, is that the right number? So many of these highest blessings, greatest happiness, it has to do with relationship, how you relate to your parents, to your spouse, in what environment you live. Do you seek out opportunities to listen to Dhamma, to speak about Dhamma? Very down-to-earth advice, up to the highest, simple quote-unquote statement, understanding the Four Noble Truths and living by it. That is one of the highest blessings. Oh, really? Yeah, go for it. Yeah. And relationship, of course, for me includes the relationship to what's going on in my own body and mind. And it's so funny, not funny, but I have a lot of numerous problems with the body. Bad knees. I'm not feeling so ashamed that I'm planning, or I have the great privilege, if I'm still alive, in February probably to have a knee replacement surgery in Germany, if I make it back there and so on, I don't feel so ashamed of it. I'm responsible for this, right, with my actions. What I've done as a young, whatever, teenager with my sports and overeating, and I feel quite ashamed of having an issue with overeating as an addiction. Or, when you stick out with monks who don't have a problem with that. When you are fat, you stick out. It's not an excuse when you come from a family where everybody had it, but, or issues with other addictions. And ultimately we are all addicted to samsara somehow, There must be reasons that we get born and born again and again. Mental rebirth, yes, here and now, but also physical rebirth. It looks like we all have been born. And this might not be our last birth, probably. I don't know. We find out. But how am I with this idea how I would like to be? The imaginable state of how would it be like not to cling so much, not to identify so much, not to hate so much. Hate as an umbrella term, I don't like. Not, oh, now I'm doing really well, Wow, look at me, I'm so empty of self. Yeah? My emptiness is much more profound than your emptiness. And, like this identification of the higher you get in the rank, of the fuller you can get of, self sometimes if you're not careful. So in that way, when dukkha hits you hard, it can be a wonderful teaching of not taking off. A few days ago, in one of these 12-step groups where I'm when I say participating, I read statements from other people. They mentioned this practice of negative gratitude. Have you heard that term before? If I have a chance, being online, every morning, every evening, I speak a gratitude list to 2 different friends. Until a number of months ago, the idea was 10 points. But I have to say, embarrassing, often I got stuck with the numbers, Then 4, 5, 6, 7, I forgot the numbers. I'm not officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I'm more than 90% sure I have ADHD also, Another identification tag I can put onto my life, mind or body. I am this, I have this. Not just broken knees, not just a crazy mind, not just traumas, not just this, not just that. But also ADHD. Wonderful excuse to, justify I'm quite forgetful. And by the way, all my family, parents, grandparents, they all had dementia, they all had Alzheimer's, so please forgive me when I forget things. Yeah? It's true, but how can we make these kind of conditions as an excuse? Yeah? I'm pausing and try to find if there was a thread of what I'm saying. Maybe was there a thread or not? I'm just lost now. Dukkha can make you humble, something like that. And then, look, I'm so humble. Oh, look at me, how humble I am, This teaching on anatta or sunyata is so deep. Not self, not soul, not emptiness. I spent until a few days ago, I was near Spokane at Sravasti Abbey, Venerable Thupten Children's Monastery, this nunnery. So Vajrayana teachings, lots of recitations, very fast recitation that blows my ADHD mind. One evening they had another special Tsok Puja. I said, sorry, I can't take any more, give me a break. And yeah, you can do that. But this motivation to practice, to awaken for the benefit of all sentient beings, that's mind-blowing. And then when you make this, you or teachings make the distinction, small vehicle, great vehicle, and then the Vajrayana vehicle. Small vehicles are very economic, right? Especially these days, global warming, which is not existing in this country, luckily, according to certain people. I love, my residence is officially in a Vietnamese Mahayana monastery in Germany, in Hanover, Pagoda Vien Yak, the Pagoda of Full Awakening, and the founding abbot there, most venerable, we say, Thich Nhat Hanh. He always stressed from the early 90s when I first met him, when I returned to Germany, we are all followers of the Buddha. We all follow Buddhayana. The vehicle of the Buddha, Lord Buddha. And very respected Theravada monks, sometimes knowingly, sometimes it's not so known, took bodhisattva vows. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to mention certain names, like I don't know how much it is known, but a respected teacher, which you have also heard of, have done this, And I have never taken formal bodhisattva vows, but sometimes people are shocked, more or less, I don't know. When they talk about, reaching Nibbana and so, and then sometimes I say, I'm not interested. Oh, what is that? First of all, when I became a novice monk back in 1989, I had no clue what I was doing, to be honest. I still remember that ordination ceremony, and you say these words, you want to attain Nibbana and so, and then, oh gosh, what am I doing here? And that's of course not true when I say I'm not interested in Nibbana, but this idea, I want to be liberated, I want to get out of here, that makes less and less sense for me with the years or decades. My practice, my problems, this asmimana, masmimana thing, I, me, mine. And then spiritual practice, Dhamma practice, can become such an ego trip. I remember when I was a young monk, whatever, the first 5, 10, 20 years, I don't know, when people ask me sometimes, can you pray for me? I was so ignorant or rude. Sometimes I said, I'm not praying. I'm meditating. This dimension of, is it devotion? I take no other refuge, or, the Buddha is my ultimate refuge. Can I say that? I can't. Because I also, I don't know, refuge, but I really actively try to nourish my Christian roots. And being inspired very much for a number of years by this 12-step program. And I remember talking to amazing teachers like Luangpo Sukhacitto, Ajahn Sukhacitto, who is, a dear friend, and he also said, like, yeah, you can, with your own effort, you go to a certain point or reach a certain point, and then you have to trust the Dhamma. These are his words, You have to surrender. Have to surrender. It doesn't work like that, right? Thy will be done are very inspiring words for me. And of course, what I really like is thy will be done according to my will. How I want it. And it doesn't work like that, in my experience. Maybe 2 years ago, in this Bhikkhuni monastery, Theravadan Bhikkhuni monastery, Ananja Vihara in Bavaria, I gave a talk which was entitled something like "The Ultimate Failure." My spiritual life, the ultimate failure. I want to get rid of certain addictions, for instance. Yeah? I failed, more or less completely. Is that true? Depends how I look at it. But one thing is very true, that with my willpower I couldn't do it alone. That's very clear. A dear friend of mine, a psychotherapist who is longer in the Dhamma than me, he was in the 80s, Harald is his name, and he was in the 80s in a Christian ashram in south of India, Pete Griffiths ashram, an ashram which was there with the blessing of the Vatican. And Pete Griffiths, or some other wonderful teacher there, gave excellent Dhamma talks, Christian Dhamma talks, and asking very smart questions at the end. So one day he asked at the end of his talk or teaching, what do you think? What you experience in life, how much is the grace of God? And please, you can replace God with truth or Dhamma or whatever as you see fit. And how much is your own effort? Yeah? Call it samavayama, right efforts, the 4 right efforts or whatever. So then next day, people gave, whatever. I think my friend said 50-50 or whatever. So what would be your answer to that? We don't know for sure, of course. We can have a guess, right? How many percent is... Well, I have no idea what God's grace is. But his smart answer was, after he denied all the answers, no. And people were quite attentive, not falling asleep. What was his answer? 100% grace, God's grace, 100% your own effort. And for me, that's very, very inspiring, very encouraging. Because many years in my practice, this dimension of other power, or in Japan I think they talk about quote-unquote self-power and other power, that road of my heart or mind was totally closed, was not existent. And especially as a Westerner, or Western Vipassanā style of practice, or I don't know whatever that is, it's often not very devotional. Of course, in monastery more than for the average Western person maybe, But really turning towards a triple gem, and in these 12-step programs, I've met people, incredible people, who were so much in their addictions. With alcohol also, I don't know if I was, when I was younger, an alcoholic or not, but I consumed regularly alcohol, and I did the most stupid things in my life when I was drunk. It's a long time ago, but miraculous things happened really to people who followed that kind of program. And a strong part of that program is to acknowledge my own self-will is not enough. That doesn't help me getting out of this mess. I'm aware of the time. I was told I should end by 9 o'clock. Does this include the anyhow, I just go on until a few more minutes. Huh? As long as I like. Oh, be careful. No, we stop before midnight. I leave the step 1, step 2 away, but this is 12 words which describe these 12 steps, in each step in one word. Honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, love, discipline, perseverance, awareness, service, passing the message on. To me, this reads like a parameter list from the Buddha. Perfections, the 12 perfections. I read them again. Honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, love, discipline, perseverance, awareness, service. And please, like when you hear the word faith, the word sada might come to your mind, translate it what fits your heart, to maybe confidence or something like that, or awareness could be sati, mindfulness, attention, services, generosity, translate these according to your understanding or your life circumstances. Maybe this is a great description of the Noble Eightfold Path or the Noble Tenfold Path, like 8 factors, then the realization and the knowledge of the realization. To me, this is really inspiring. And when the experience of dukkha, whatever it is, there's not that resistance, but the fully acknowledging. In the practice of insight dialogue, one of the meditation guidelines, instructions is relax. And that invites, of course, the body to relax, but really cultivate an attitude in your mind to accept the way things are in this moment, allow it to be the way it is in this moment, receive as it is in this moment. This is not a denial at all of right effort, But when you meet experience and you immediately resist it, you have the second, third, fourth arrow. Yeah? Or some people like Byron Katie, they put it, you're playing God. Only to manipulate. Resist this negative attachment, right? Grasping or negative grasping. I don't want vibhava tanha, second noble truth. Bhava tanha, I want to get out of here. So the depths of this teaching of anatta sunyata is profound, deep. Very deep. And my sense, my experience seems to be the less there is I want, the less there is I, me, mine, there's room for something else, which usually feels better, more connecting. And my sponsor in the 12-step program, he said a sentence which really touched me, the best. he was talking about lust, you know. The best remedy against lust is connection. And connection, you can say, in the ultimate sense, is the realization that everything is interconnected. There's no separate self, right? That is connected. When I'm connected to you, I'm less self-centered. When I'm connected to the environment, when I'm not so full of judgment, especially negative judgment, it's more connection. And that feels different than feeling so isolated or, you know, so aloof or so depressed or whatever. So, 9 o'clock, I should stop. I thank you so much for your possible attention, and I hope there was some use. If not, just leave it here and don't let it bother you. Thank you.
Close with the chant on page 41. May I abide in well-being,
in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their actions and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their own. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs.
closing homage on page 29. The Lord,
The perfectly enlightened and blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One.
the teachings
So completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma.
the Blessed One's disciples,
Who have practiced well,